Hello and welcome to my channel Lilo sagt Hallo. In this part, you're going to see how you can engage students in an online class. Engaging students is one of the most important things you have to do when you run an online class, because if you do not engage them, they might lose interest and then they do not show up for your future classes. And this you want to avoid for sure. So let's see some tips how you can engage students in a very good way. The first thing you could do is to try to create a classroom environment. You could do this by choosing a virtual classroom picture, either an open air one, an indoor one, morning or evening time. And then you number the seats and let students choose their seat. So there are lots of creative options here, and that would break the ice at the beginning of the classroom, and it creates a bit of fun for all as well. For a teacher, I also recommend to write down on a piece of paper the names and the sequence of the students for yourself, so that during interactions like exercises and other things, you ask students to engage in a sequence. That way you give everyone the opportunity to participate without forgetting anyone in the class. That paper supports you also to remember students' names, and you call people by their names without having to pop out the participant menu every time. If you don't hear feedback from everyone, figure out who didn't provide feedback and mention the names. It could be, for example, a sentence like, "What about you, Peter? Is everything clear for you, or do you have any questions?" So that way they know you're focusing on them as well and they feel important, addressed, and engaged. So engaging students properly will support in avoiding a student to multitask, will increase their interest in the class, and it ensures also that they're attending the next class much more motivated. The second thing I recommend is not to mute the participants' mics unless someone is generating noise. It could be from a room fan, the AC, a laptop fan, or simply some background noise from his or her family. And I know sometimes someone keeps on breathing into the mic and that generates noise as well. So then I suggest to mute this participant only and unmute him or her when you want the student to talk. Not unmuting all enables students to ask questions when they need quickly, and it makes also the interaction quicker. You ensure also that the student is not talking to someone else in the family during the class or picking up his phone. When the students are not muted, they do not feel isolated, and it is similar to a classroom environment where everyone can speak when he or she needs to. You should also inform them when you're muting all or unmuting all. And when you mute all, highlight please that in case of questions, the student can feel free to unmute and to ask the question. That facilitates the participation a bit more. A third factor which plays a role is how frequent you engage the students. You need to engage students frequently, and I cannot emphasize the word frequently enough. So after every 5 minutes of talking from your side, give the students one round of speaking. They might read out what is on the screen. Every person reads one sentence. You solve an exercise together while every person solves one part of the exercise. There are plenty of ways how you can involve the students. You might ask also if everyone has understood everything, let them respond. Creating frequent checkpoints is very important. They will get the feeling that you care about, that they understand the lesson, and that you are not just performing your duty. Another way of engaging the students is via the chat function. In a language class, for example, you usually cannot really revise the spelling capabilities on spot and provide correction. You focus more on the pronunciation, for example. But in an online environment, you can ask students to write down sentences quickly into the chat box. You can copy and paste what they have written onto your virtual whiteboard, and you start correcting together. You might also ask others what they think is not correct in the sentence and let them do the correction and engage. Please don't forget to ask for feedback. Your question could be like, does everybody understand this part? So if you move too fast and students do not understand and they are shy to speak up, then they will be demotivated and disengaged for the rest of the class. And even worse, they might maybe not be willing to show up again the next time because they don't see any value in the class anymore. So for them, it would be only wasted bandwidth and time, and that we want to avoid. So please always ask for regular feedback. That is much more important than just listing down the content you are planning to teach. This suggestion is specifically for language classes in the intermediate level. I suggest to dedicate some amount of time for conversation in your class. If your students have passed a few levels of language learning, they might build up their opinions using very simple phrases and vocabulary they already know. And they will also learn some new vocabulary from you. That makes them feel happy because they have started to master some conversation, and that gives them a very high motivation. Those were a few tips on how you could engage your students in your online class. I hope you found them beneficial and that you will apply them in your next class. Thanks a lot for watching and good luck.